Everyone.
So guys, today we're again here with Mr. Bunmi Elesho. We had this interview the first time before where he discussed about himself and how he was able to build wealth and he was able to go from debt to wealth. So in this particular episode, we're going to be discussing building a successful business from the ground up. How you can build up a business from the scratch. This is going to be a personal MBA for anybody, wherever you are, wherever in whichever country you are, especially though if you're in Africa. This is going to be a personal MBA for you in building your business. We're going to discuss on capital, building, startup, raising, hiring, firing, everything that you need to know regarding building a business all the way from the ground up. This video, like I said, is going to be a personal MBA for anybody ready to start up a business and to grow it into becoming successful. Mr. Bunmi Elesho here is the Group Chief Executive Officer of Mediplan Holdings. He knows the nitty-gritty of building a business from scratch. He has various businesses all over the country. So he's going to carry us on this particular one. If you have not seen the other episode or if you want to know more about him, I will link the first episode, the first interview we did in the description where he talked about himself and you can read about his profile and many things you need to know about him. So, but this one, like I said, is going to be on building a business from scratch. So if this is your first time of coming to this channel, do well to hit the subscribe button, like this video, and share this video with one or two persons. So guys, make welcome Mr. Bunmi Elesho.
Thank you.
Sir, it's good to have you again on this special one. So on this particular episode, we're going to be discussing on building a business from scratch as an entrepreneur. But firstly, I want to ask you, why should I be an entrepreneur? Why should anybody want to become an entrepreneur? What should be the driving force? Why do you think anyone should want to be an entrepreneur?
All right. Firstly, if you're in Nigeria, you have two options to be productive.
Okay.
Either you get a job,
Okay.
or you be an entrepreneur. Unfortunately, at this point in time, many of our industries are not producing enough jobs for the population that we have.
Okay.
So for many people, having that option of being an entrepreneur is arguably the only way out. So that's reason number one.
Okay.
Reason number two is that the greatest wealth creators are entrepreneurs. There's a limit to how much you can earn from a job. But when you're an entrepreneur, there's no limit. The limit is how far you can drive your business. Reason number three is that when you're an entrepreneur, you have the opportunity of actually doing what you love. Because you choose what business you should do.
Okay.
So for me, I'm at a stage now in my life where I'm doing what I enjoy doing. So, and one of the things I've discovered about life is that when you do what you enjoy doing, it's no longer work. So when people are talking about hard work, for you it is easy because you're enjoying what you're doing. The fourth reason is you also now have control over your time, but that is also a control that requires discipline. So because nobody will question you whether you go to the office or not, doesn't mean you should stay at home. So those are four reasons that I can give at this point.
Okay, those are four reasons that is necessary for, or that are the reasons why anybody should want to be an entrepreneur. Okay,
I can add a fifth one,
Okay.
which is that making money is just simply solving problems. Whoever can solve any problem makes money in that process. So an entrepreneur's job is to look for problems to solve. So when you look at Nigeria with 200 million people, with so many things that are not working, I'll tell you that Nigeria is a gold mine for an entrepreneur. Because solving any of the problems, I'll give you a very simple one.
Okay.
Everybody is complaining about power.
Yeah.
To solve the power sector problem in Nigeria probably requires somewhere between 50 to 100 billion dollars in investments. That's an opportunity that will not go away for the next 10 years. And whoever solves those problems will make money. So 200 million people need food, 200 million people need water, 200 million people need schools, 200 million people need clothes, and so on and so forth.
Interesting. So are entrepreneurs born or made?
Both.
Describe it.
I grew up watching my parents as entrepreneurs. So from the time I was growing up, now let me backtrack a little bit. Every one of us are influenced one way or the other by the environment in which we grew up in. So if you grew up in a house where your parents were civil servants, until you meet other people that become entrepreneurs, you, in terms of your mindset, will be tailored towards being a civil servant, because that's the environment you grew up with. So entrepreneurs are made in the sense that the more you grow in an environment, the more you interact with people who are entrepreneurs, the easier it is for you to become an entrepreneur. So that is, entrepreneurs can be made in that way. But some of us are born with what you call an alpha attitude. You want to be number one. When you have that attitude from birth, there's some people that are born, even at 3 years old, they're already demonstrating leadership skills. They're already demonstrating inquisitive and skills. Those people are born to lead. So those ones too are likely to become entrepreneurs. They probably won't work well going to an office 9 to 5 and waiting for the next promotion. They are more aggressive, more independent, more versatile, more inquisitive. So such people, you could say, are born entrepreneurs.
Are they going to do better than those that are not born entrepreneurs?
I would not necessarily say so. What I could say is that if someone is born an entrepreneur and now develops in an atmosphere where there are lots of entrepreneurs for him or her to learn from, then that person is probably more likely to succeed. Let me say some other interesting things. To succeed as an entrepreneur, it's not the smartest people that become the best entrepreneurs. It's not necessarily the most intelligent people. There are some skills, some things that makes entrepreneurs to be more successful. One of them is audacity. You don't have to be very intelligent to be audacious. And some people are very intelligent, but they're not audacious. So for you to succeed exceptionally as an entrepreneur, you must be audacious. And that audacity is a combination of being born with it and also being in the midst of people who demonstrate it. Number two is that entrepreneurs have to be resilient. You must be able to weather storms, weather difficulties. So, and some of those traits are inherent. Some people give up too easily, and some people never give up. So there's some people are just stubborn. So that is another trait that is very crucial if you want to succeed as an entrepreneur.
Okay. Now, for someone to want to be an entrepreneur, there needs to be a need or a desire that someone is about to solve. How can I go about identifying the need in the marketplace for me to be able to come out as an entrepreneur to solve it?
All right. My best advice is that, first of all, you function best where you have a passion for something.
Okay. So
the problem you should be trying to solve are problems that you are passionate about. So my advice would be, first of all, ask yourself, what are you passionate about? And then when you are able to answer that question, then the next question will be, what are the problems that you identify in your environment that you are passionate about? Then from there, you now move into specifics. That's one way. For some of us, for example, what we are passionate about and what we can afford to start are not the same. So, in that wise, you can draw up a plan for what you are passionate about, but you've got to start with what you have. So, that means you have to look at what you have and what problems can you solve with what you have. And usually the problems you can solve with what you have includes what you are good at. I started by being a consultant because I'm an accountant by training. So at every point in time, I have accounting, I have financial skills. I can always sell that. So that's what I started with, even though that's not what I wanted to do. So you need to find how to start with what you have and then move gradually towards what you're passionate about.
Okay, you need to start from what you have, then move gradually towards what you're passionate about. Because some people will say, I know what I'm passionate about, but I cannot be able to make the kind of money I want to make, and that's what I'm passionate about. So I need to do something that I just need to make money that I can move into what I'm passionate about. Is that what you're trying to say?
That's perfectly okay.
Okay, before starting a business, what does anyone need as a requirement before starting a business?
What's the problem you're trying to solve?
What's the problem you're trying to solve? Okay, let me put it this way. At what point do I know I am ready to become an entrepreneur? What are the elements? What are the key elements that you can leave like 3 or 5 that are key elements that will make anybody ready to dive into the entrepreneurship world?
Okay, let me use or answer this question in this manner. Some people are forced to become entrepreneurs because they can't find a job. So for such a person, for example, then what the person needs to do is to ask, what do I have? What can I sell? Do I have any skill to sell? For example, if I were to start now and I don't have a job, and I don't have any educational background to sell accounting skills or sell financial skills, then obviously I need to now say I have time to sell. So, for example, during this cash crunch, I understand some people who are selling their position on a queue. That person is just simply selling time. I wake up early in the morning and go join a queue. When it's my turn, somebody comes, I sell my position, I go back again to the queue. All that person is doing is selling time. So the first question is, what do I have to sell? That's if I'm forced by need to start as an entrepreneur.
Okay.
Now, but if I'm not forced by need and I can get a job, then what I'll advise is learn how to work in a system. Learn how systems are built. How does a proper company function? There's a managing director, there's a head of finance, there's human resources, there's production, there's sales, there's marketing. Learn those things. That's first step. Second step, build some capital. Build some capital. Third step, identify the problems you want to solve. Fourth step, investigate that sector. Who are the players? What are they doing? How do they do it? What gap am I going to fill? And then do your business plan before you start.
So those are the steps. Okay, now
that is for someone who is not forced to start as an entrepreneur.
Okay. So that's like 2 of it. The first one is by need, by selling time.
The first one is by need. So by need means you have to ask yourself, what do I have to sell?
Okay.
So if you don't have any skills to sell, then all you are selling is time. If all you are selling is time, then you could either do what that guy did, like queuing, or look for someone, any kind of errand you can go for people, or you could go start work as a laborer, whatever it is.
Okay.
That requires somebody to do something. That's time.
But the other one is to look for employment. So is it possible to become a successful entrepreneur without having to work with someone at all?
It's possible, but it's more difficult because there are a lot more things you have to learn, and you learn a lot by trial and error.
Okay.
Yes, because for example, if you've never worked somewhere before, so you don't really know that there's supposed to be a separation of HR, of finance, of sales, of production. When you hire staff, you will know that there needs to be a job description, there needs to be KPIs, key performance indicators. There needs to be appraisals. There needs to be a structure. How do you promote? So all those issues, if you've never worked in a standard place where those things are in place, you have to learn them. And if you are not somebody that is able to learn as you move along, might become difficult, because as you're hiring people, as your business expands and you're hiring people, you need to have some structures. Who does what? How do you reward? How do you determine whose staff is performing? It's not a question of I like you or I don't like you. There has to be measurements. There has to be matrices. There has to be things that the person is supposed to do that you can measure and determine who did well and who didn't do well. Okay. So you need to learn all those structures and systems.
Okay, but if somebody doesn't have, like in this our country now, we know about the unemployment rates and how people are unemployed there and they are jobless. So can you say someone should go ahead into becoming an entrepreneur without going through these structures or having to work with people to learn all of these things, but the person can just start and make all the trial and error?
If you can get a job, I'll advise you get a job. If you can't get a job, then go and start. And then keep learning as you move along.
Okay, any person can get a job.
If you can get a job and learn on the job. If you can't get a job, then go and start. But you have to recognize that there's a lot you need to learn as you continue to grow.
Okay, now is it a must? They said that I used to hear this saying that before you start off a business, you need to develop a business plan and all of that, put it down, write it down. Is it a must? I must have a business plan before going into business or before becoming an entrepreneur? Why can't I just have it in my head?
One of the biggest reasons why entrepreneurs fail is that failure to plan and plan well is a big problem. You need to plan at the beginning, you need to plan during your journey, and you need to plan every day. You see, what is planning? Planning is, I have to go to Ikeja. How am I going to get there? Am I going by road? Am I going by helicopter? Am I going by boat? That's question number one. If I'm going by car or by road, am I driving? Am I getting a driver? Am I hiring a car? Or am I walking to the junction to get a bus? Regardless of which of the four options I take using a car, which route am I going to go with? Those are all planning steps. So, and that's why, because you want to get to Ikeja in the most optimal manner. Now, how do you now want to have a business if you've not sat down to ask yourself, first and foremost, where am I going? Because the journey to Ikeja and the journey to Ekpe are not the same. So the first thing that planning does is that it forces you to first ask yourself, where exactly are you going? The second question, if this is where I'm going, how do I get there? Third question, if this route that I originally planned does not work, what is the alternative route? Those are all the things that you do while you plan. So when you're starting as an entrepreneur, you're even functioning as an entrepreneur, if you're not constantly doing all of this, you will meet with obstacles that will get you stranded. So that's why you need to plan, both at the beginning and throughout your journey as an entrepreneur.
Okay, I've heard that even without that, I've heard some people say that if you planning, writing down all of these things, it's just like time wasting. That just starts, and as you go, you can iterate, you can make corrections, whatever you experience, you can just correct and move on. Because what if you are planning for some things and then you get to a particular point and then that thing did not happen that way? What do you now do? Do you now have to reverse or do you now? So what should you do? Must I sit down and put something down, spend all the time, or I can just be going whatever I meet along the road? I just
My advice is you need to plan. So what I do when I plan, for example, I just recruited some people in the office and I told them that my job is simple. As group CEO of a group that has about 8 or 9 companies, my job is simple. I have 3 things I do. Number 1, I dream. Number 2, I plan. Number 3, I execute. Dream is, where am I going? How far can we go? What is our limit? Once I've determined that limit, then the next question is, how do we get there? And when I'm determining how do we get there, some of the important steps, sometimes I have up to 5 plans. Plan A, if this happens, we'll go right. If this thing doesn't happen, we'll turn left. If this one doesn't happen and the second one doesn't happen, we'll reverse and make a U-turn. If the 3 doesn't happen, we'll reverse, turn right, then turn left again. So I have plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, plan E. So that I will have thought of so many options and scenarios that no matter what happens along the journey, I'm not stranded. So, for example, if I want to go to Abuja and I have a ticket, and I get to the airport and they say, oh, there are no flights. Plan B, is there any car hire at the airport that can take me to Abuja? If there's no car hire at the airport in Abuja, plan C, where's the nearest motor park to get a car to Abuja? If there's no car that will take me to Abuja from the nearest motor park, plan D, if I get to the motor park, where's the nearest place I can get a car that will take me along the journey? So if it is Ibadan, let's go to Ibadan. When we get to Ibadan, I look for another car. That's what a plan does for you. So if there's no plan, you get to the airport, and then there's no plane, you're stranded, you're confused. What do I do now? So if you're not careful, you start panicking.
Wow, this is interesting. So now, business plan. What are the nitty-gritty for anybody that wants to start a business? Now, you said you've cleared it out, the importance of setting up a business plan. For anybody that wants to start that doesn't know what to start writing or what to start scribbling down as his business plan, what are the steps you think you can give as a direction for putting down a business plan?
I keep going back to first question is, what are the problems you're trying to solve? So, let's say I want to solve problems of there are 10 million children in Nigeria that are not in school. Okay. So I want to solve educational problems. Okay. So I want to set up a nursery school. All right. So the first question in my business plan is, this nursery school, where will it be? That's Nigeria. So I need to first identify the problem of those 10 million children in Nigeria. That's step 1. Step 2, who are the people currently solving this problem? And why is there a gap of 10 million children? Is it that the schools are not enough? Or the schools are too expensive? Or there are schools in locations and there are some schools, or there are some locations that don't have schools? So I must be able to quantify the industry. So the first is Nigeria. The second is the industry. Then the third one will now be, based on number 1 and number 2, where am I going to put my own school in such a way that it will succeed? So that will be step number 3. Step number 4, based on where I'm going to put my own school, how much money am I going to need? Okay. Is it for rent? Is it for equipment? Is it for salaries? Step number 5, what kind of people am I going to need to work with me? How many classes am I setting up? How many teachers do I need? Step number 6, based on all of these things, how much am I going to charge? Who am I targeting? Who are the people that will be able to afford what I'm going to charge? How many of them can I get? And based on all of this, I have to now drop a financial plan. What is the income that will come? What are the expenses? And what is the profits? And when am I going to get to a profit point? Because when you start, you don't start by making money. You start by losing money. So the question is, how long will it take you to move from when you start losing money to when you start making money? And then you now need to do what you call scenario analysis, which is that if this thing I planned to take me 6 months, if it takes 18 months, can I survive? Can I keep paying salaries for 18 months? So those are the things that you need to put in a business plan.
Okay, now good. Now it's clear now that based on all the things you've listed in putting up a business plan, money is involved, making losses, that you need to make losses and all of that. Okay, someone wants to start up a business now, but you say, I do not have money, capital. Those are, you know what, that's one of the key challenges people raise up when it comes to starting up a business. Okay, now this laudable business plan you put up, you need money to execute it or to start it up. How can someone go about raising that capital, which is one of the major, the key issue? You tell somebody, go and start up a business, go and start up something. The person was not talking about money. I don't have money to start up a business. How can someone go about raising up that money to start up that business that the person needs to?
When you're starting, it's an experiment. And because it is an experiment, your chances of failing is very high. I've had businesses that I started in the early days, that I had partners that invested money. I had to sell cars to pay back their money because the business didn't work. So when you are raising capital, step number one is that you must recognize that what you are trying to do is an experiment. And your chances of failing is very high. So the first thing you need to now do, therefore, is that you must raise capital from yourself, because you will forgive yourself if you don't make the money. After yourself, raise capital from people who will support you because they are either friends and family. Because if the business fails, if it's your father that gave you the money, he won't quarrel with you. Now, so that's my advice at the beginning, because your chance of failing is high. And if the people that gave you money to or supported you are not people who will easily forgive your failure, you could seriously damage relationships. So that's the first thing. And you must always recognize that when you're starting a business, it's an experiment. It may work, it may not work. So you must be prepared to ask yourself, supposing it doesn't work, what will I do? Because many people have run into trouble because they didn't ask that question. And then failing in business doesn't mean you are a failure. I've read so many autobiographies, and there's nobody I've read of that succeeded that has not experienced some failures. Nobody. Aliko Dangote, that everybody is talking about in Nigeria today, people don't know that there was a time that he owned one or two banks. The banks didn't do very well. He sold them.
Okay.
So failing in business is not a problem. It's something you must be prepared to face as an entrepreneur.
Okay, now you talked about the person raising money starting from himself, then family, before you think about people. So if the person says, I don't have money for my own self, and my family members are not buoyant to give me money to start up, so and I need to start up my business, what's the way forward?
One other, I said there's some skills you need to have in raising capital. One of the biggest negatives that many people don't realize in raising capital is when you go to somebody and say you need capital for a business, and they ask you, how much are you putting? And you say nothing. For me, that's an immediate no-no. You want to carry out an experiment, and you're not putting anything yourself. So why should it be my own money that will be at risk? You have nothing to lose.
That's true.
So professional investors, the first thing they are looking for before they support anybody is this person going to go bankrupt if the business fails? Has this person put everything he has inside the business? If the person has, then you can begin to look at what the person has to say. Because if the person has put everything he has into that business, that person is not going to sleep if that business is not working. But if the person hasn't put in anything, if the business doesn't work, he will just come and say, Oga, we tried, it didn't work. He has nothing to lose. He has nothing to lose. So rule number one, when you become a professional investor, is if anybody comes to you for money and he himself is not putting in everything he has in that business, the answer is no.
Straight up.
Straight. The answer is no.
So that means another way of around it could be that, okay, since you don't have money and you cannot start up a business, you can go and look for a job and just start up from that. And
Remember I said, if you can find a job, get a job and build some
and
capital.
build some capital. That's true. Okay, now must anybody have educational qualification before you can start up a business? Then you must have gone to school, graduate, and all of that, or even somebody without any of educational qualification can start up a business and build it to be successful. Is it possible?
Yes, it is.
Okay, explain.
Let me start by also saying some fundamental things that many of us don't know. Going to school, when you are doing business, for example, what you learned in school is not necessarily what you use in your business. You have graduates of English that are managing directors of banks. What has English got to do with running a bank? So the biggest lesson you learn from going to school is that knowledge and acquiring knowledge is a trait that you develop.
Okay.
So you go to school to learn how to read. But after school, you now read in order to learn. So even if you didn't go to school, you have to constantly be reading either journals in your industry, reports in your industry, etc., in order to continue to learn. Because learning is a skill you must have till the very last day on this earth.
Now, when I was in Warri Delta State, I've met a billionaire that doesn't even know how to write his or her name. How did it happen? So is it possible for someone to grow up to that magnificent wealth without even knowing how to read or write?
You see, you miss one fundamental point.
Okay.
Because he didn't know how to read or write doesn't mean he wasn't learning. For him to have built that business, even if it is a trading business, he must have learned what makes a product sell. What price do I need to buy a product? And what price must I sell for me to make a profit? He must have learned all of those things.
Okay.
So learning is not just in literature, even though literature is a very fundamental part of learning. But it's not just in literature.
Okay.
So it's all about acquiring information that helps your decision making. So if you're going to succeed in life, you must keep learning. And one of the interesting things about life is that things are constantly changing. The environment is changing. Technology is changing. People are changing. Tastes are changing. Competition is changing. Even the regulatory environment is changing. So you have to keep learning, to keep upgrading and keep updating. Otherwise, you become irrelevant. When in those days when internet started, we had cyber cafes.
Yes.
Do you see them anymore? Everybody's phone is a cyber cafe.
That's true. They're packed up.
So you have to keep upgrading yourself because the environment is changing.
That's true. That's true. Okay, now someone will say, okay, and now I've started my business. I need to generate customers. Are there strategies that someone can go about generating customers for the business the person has started?
Of course, there are always strategies.
Okay.
First of all, what's the problem you are solving? Why should a customer come to you? Because human beings are human beings. We have self-interest. So for me, I won't come to you because I like you. I must come to you because there's something you are selling that I want or I need, and you're selling it at a price that I can afford and I feel is worth what you're selling to me. So there are strategies. Who are your customers? What are they looking for? Why are they buying your products? Why should they buy from you and not from the next man? So those are all the things you must consider and in developing your strategy. But that also comes from having a fair understanding of the product, the problem you are solving, the people you are trying to sell or solve those problems for, and what are the things that informs their decisions. For example, there are some products that are called that have what you call snob appeal.
Snob appeal.
Which means that if it's not expensive, the people won't buy it.
If it's not expensive, the people won't buy it.
Because they consider it to be of inferior quality. That's why it's called snob appeal.
Snob appeal, okay.
So if it's cheap, it's considered inferior.
Wow.
Whereas there are some products that if it is not very cheap, nobody is going to buy it.
How do you differentiate those businesses?
Well, you need to know, so that's why you need to understand what problem are you trying to solve. Let me give you an example. The man that wants to buy a Rolls Royce and the man that wants to buy the cheapest Toyota or the cheapest Hyundai, okay? The person that wants to buy that car and the person that wants to buy a Rolls Royce, they're not solving the same problem. They're not solving the same problem. The person that wants to buy a Hyundai wants to just move from one place to the other.
That's true.
But the person that wants to buy a Rolls Royce wants the world to know, I have arrived. So it's not just moving from one place to the other. There's a snob appeal to owning a Rolls Royce. When you get to a place and you come out of a Rolls Royce, you are making a statement that I'm not an ordinary person. I'm a very successful person. That's why if you go to a place, in a club or a place and they are bouncing every car, when someone comes in a Rolls Royce, they will find space. Because that is what the person is buying. So you need to understand who are your customers. What product are you selling? What problem are you solving? So the person is selling Rolls Royce is not solving a transportation problem. It's the person selling Hyundai that is selling a transportation problem. Or that is solving a transportation problem. The person selling Rolls Royce is not solving a transportation problem. It's solving a snob appeal problem. A status symbol problem. That's what he's selling. So you need to understand what you are selling, because that will now determine what is important to the customers. So for a Rolls Royce, the more specialized the car is, the better it is, regardless of how expensive it is. The person buying Hyundai, please give me the basic one. I don't want all those extra. I just want a car that will take me from here to there.
Finish. Now, are you the person now to create that appeal for your business to make it expensive, or you should just create a business or a product and then give it big price so that you can have that appeal of Rolls Royce, or give it a small price so you can have that appeal of the cheapest Toyota?
For you to solve a problem like that is snob appeal, you must have a brand.
Must have a brand.
Because you must have something that people will recognize that this is status symbol. If I start making shoes now and I want to sell it at the same price that Gucci is selling their shoes, nobody will buy from me. I say, what is this? Just ordinary leather, he wants to sell it for $1,000. Is he well? No.
Even though it may be of same quality of Gucci.
You see, a Gucci shoe that is $1,000 is actually, the cost is actually about $300. The remaining $500 is the brand.
It's just the brand name. Wow.
It's the brand name.
Wow.
It's the brand name.
So someone can actually be selling something of same quality of Gucci, but cannot be able to put the price of Gucci.
Why do you think brands like Gucci have grade A, grade B, grade C, what they call those things again now? Fake, what they call counterfeits. There's grade A counterfeits of Gucci. Grade A is simply almost the same thing as what Gucci has made, apart from the fact that it's not made in Gucci factory. That's all. Grade B is now lower quality. And guess what? Those same products that they put Gucci, it might be the same Chinese manufacturer that is making grade A, but this time around it's not Gucci that is on it. But it's the same product. So the fact that it doesn't have that brand on it is what makes the difference.
Now, how can someone have that strong brand or build up that brand?
You see, for you not to have a brand and you want to create a product with a snob appeal is very difficult. Because what are you selling? If, for example, today now, music stars, film stars, even some sports stars, they make perfumes and they put their name on it. And they sell it for a high price. Because they are already recognized names in other sectors. They are not known in perfume, but at least they are known in those other sectors. So they already have a brand.
A brand name.
That can work. But you are you're a non-entity you don't have any, you have not made any name in anywhere. You want to put a high price. Where's the brand value coming from?
Do you think the brand value will come from maybe the old person doing that and then selling it, creating the market for it, then build that appeal to people?
If you, first of all, create a market, then you now want to create a product that you want to sell as a higher value, that can work because you already have a product in the market. So you're not bringing this one and saying, my other product is for everybody. But this particular product is not for everybody. That can work. But that you're just coming, you don't have any product, you don't have any brand anywhere, it's unlikely to work.
Okay. Now, back to the business plan that you were discussing about. You didn't put in place challenges, failure, and all of that. If someone starting up a business and started experiencing challenges, failure, and all of that, how can one go about working around experiencing failure in business?
Okay, I think the first thing you need to ask yourself, if in business and in anything in life, the first thing I always recommend is we should learn to do postmortems.
Postmortem.
So at the end of every day, for example, what worked today? What didn't work? What did I do well today? What didn't I do well? You need to have that as an attitude.
Okay.
So that's principle number one. On a daily basis in everything in life.
Okay.
When you now come to business, if the business, first of all, before a business fails, you would have gotten to a point where your income is less than your expenses. And when your income is less than your expenses, it means you are not selling enough products or service or whatever it is you're selling to cover your expenses. So that's even before the business fails. So even before the business fails, you need to now start asking yourself, why am I not selling? Is my product not good enough? Am I selling in the right market? Am I pricing appropriately? Is my quality good enough? So those are the first questions you need to ask before you even get to the point where the business fails. If you finally get to a point where the business fails, then you need to now go further. Was the idea even a good idea in the beginning? Because sometimes, especially when it's a startup, when you are starting, it looks like a very good idea. But when you now get into the market, you suddenly discover that nobody wants to pay for that product. For example, in Nigeria, because most people are dealing with poverty, there's something called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. When people are dealing with poverty, their priority is very simple. Eat, drink. And when I say eat and drink, I'm talking the BRS cost. Sleep, clothes, then basic transportation cost. Anything that is beyond these 5 things that you want to sell to such a person, you're wasting your time. You're wasting your time. So if you are now bringing a product and say, this thing, it will help you to stay strong, it's vitamin A, vitamin. Okay. The by way I chopped yesterday, now without What do I need to use your vitamin, whatever for? So, those are some of the things that you learn when you start a business. That thing you thought everybody will need or everybody will want may not necessarily be so. People might be dealing with more fundamental problems than you imagined. Or there could be somebody else that is selling a fake. And because everybody is looking for that extra savings, they're not interested in the quality you are selling. That fake one is enough for them. Because their priority at that stage of their life is they're just surviving. So those are all the things you need to look at. If you fail, you need to now assess all those questions. Was the idea correct? If the idea was correct, did I implement it in the right way? Was there something I did that I shouldn't have done? Or was there something that I shouldn't have done that I did? And so on and so forth.
Okay, now, at what point would someone, after experiencing one failure after the other, you used to hear, hey, motivational speaker would say, don't give up, press on, carry on, don't give up. If you fail 7 times, you rise up 8 times. At what point would someone say, okay, this is time to give up on this thing, go and look for something else? Or the person should keep pressing on because we have been hearing, don't give up, press on, press on.
Let me correct if you fall 7 times, rise up 8. Whenever you fall, you need to do a post-mortem.
Okay.
Because if you don't do a post-mortem and find out why you fell and what changes you need to make in order not to fall the second time, you will keep falling. So every time you fall is an opportunity to learn. One of the things I have learned is you need to know both what to do and what not to do. Knowing what not to do is as important as knowing what to do.
Knowing what not to do is as important as knowing what to do. Okay.
So when you fall, those are opportunities for you to learn and know what not to do.
Okay.
Because if you don't learn and make those corrections, you will keep falling. Let me give you an example. I started my company, or the first company, and shut it down twice before I finally was able to keep it going. For one simple reason. It was an advisory business and we didn't have income coming every day. But I had staff. So every month, we had to pay salaries. Income wasn't coming regularly, but expenses were coming regularly. So at some point, if those incomes don't come as regular as is required to meet your cost, you will shut down. So I had to learn that if your incomes are not regular, your costs had better be very, very low. So that one income can cover costs for 1 year. So that's step number 1.
Okay.
If your incomes are not regular, your cost must be as low as possible.
Okay.
Step number 2, when your incomes are not regular, you have to find alternative sources of incomes until you can become regular. So now, but for your cost to be low, I now have to recognize that when you are starting a business, you can't hire the best staff. You can only hire the staff you can afford. You can't hire the best staff.
That's true.
You cannot pay like Shell. You cannot pay like Zenith Bank. You're a startup. You don't have that money. So you hire what you can afford. And more often than not, what you can afford may not be very good quality. But that's what you manage until you can stand. So every time you fall is an opportunity for you to learn what to do and what not to do next time.
Okay. So in this case then now, if someone falls, it's an opportunity to learn what not to do next time. Are you trying to say that someone should just learn what not to do, then continue with the business? Or there should be a point in time where the person should say, maybe this thing is not just my place or my calling. Let me move to something else.
Now, like I said, every time you fall, you must learn. So, falling is only useful if you are constantly learning good lessons, because then you are becoming better every time you rise up. And sometimes you could actually come to a point where you discover that probably this business is not good for me at this time, or this business is not even good for this economy at this time.
You change.
And then you change. But the bottom line is, every fall, you must learn. What mistakes did I make? What must I correct? How do I do it next time? If you don't learn those lessons, you keep falling.
How can someone deal with that desire, that hunger for different opportunities when somebody is doing something here and maybe another opportunity just come up? They say, this is the next place now that something is happening here. Move, person moves to that place, doing. Then you hear another news again. This is the next place now. Opportunity is coming up here. There is money here. If you jump into this business, you're gonna make this kind of money. Person moving from different business, all in the name of opportunity. What are you going to see in that kind of scenario of someone making focus or moving into different opportunities?
Vision.
Okay.
You know, there's a saying in the Bible that when there's no vision, people perish. If there's no vision of where you are going, any opportunity can distract you. But when there is vision, you're not distracted. If I say I'm going to Abuja and I'm going to the airport to catch a flight to Abuja, I cannot be distracted.
At all.
I know where I'm going. So on the road to the airport, if anybody stops me and says, there's something nice here, no, I'm going to Abuja. When I get to the airport and the flight for Benin is announced, that's not for me. I'm going to Abuja. Vision. When there's no vision, you will get distracted.
Okay.
You will be confused. Okay. Because there will always be all kinds of things that will come your way. And you'll be wondering whether to turn right or turn left because of all those opportunities. But when there's vision,
using the example you make of you are going to Abuja and then you hear a flight for Benin announced, all you know is that you are going to Abuja. If a flight for Benin is announced and then you know you are going to Abuja to make 1 billion naira, and then they announce flight for Benin and they say that Benin we're going to make 5 billion. Why don't you switch to Benin and go and make 5 billion?
Vision.
Still back to vision.
Vision. You've heard me say sometimes that if you make me governor of Lagos, I won't pray about it before I say no.
You reject it outright.
Correct. It's vision. Vision.
Okay, what is vision?
You know, if you look at, I like watching some movies, or no, some educational films on lions. I like the lion. When lions are hunting, they're focused. There could be a herd of 200 cows. They're focused on one.
That's true. That's very true.
So you see, focus in life is a powerful tool for success. When there's no focus, you're unlikely to be successful. You'll be drifting left, right, and center.
That's true.
So vision gives you enhanced focus.
Wow.
And your capacity to succeed is significantly increased when that is in place.
So what is vision? What is vision?
Vision is simply a picture of where you want to go to.
So what's the plan like in setting up a vision? What should be the idea? Like, what are the elements of your vision?
Wow. The first thing is, what dream do you have? What's your idea of a future you want to create? So that's the first thing that must be clear. What future are you trying to create? So when you have that dream, you have to document it. That dream has to become clear. You have to document it. What does it look like? So if I want to build a house, I have to first have a picture in my mind. Is it a 5-bedroom house? Is it a 2-bedroom house? Is it standalone? Is it a bungalow? Is it a high-rise? What's the dream? What's the picture? When I have that picture, then I need to document it. It has to be put down in writing.
Okay.
So until a dream is put down in writing, you can't call it a vision. You're still dreaming.
It must be in writing.
It must be in
It
writing.
cannot be in your brain.
No. It's because when you put it in writing, you now begin to question some fundamentals about it. Does it even make sense? And then, how do I get there? So the first thing is, does it make sense? Second question now becomes, how do I get there? Now, if I don't put it in writing and be clear as to what it looks like, I can't develop a plan to get there because I'm not even sure where I'm going. So putting it in writing clarifies it and makes it clear, this is what I want to accomplish. Then, and only then, can I now start saying, okay, how do I move from where I am today to that place that I want to accomplish? So planning can only start when the vision is clarified. Vision is only clarified when it is documented.
What's the best way someone can be able to measure success or track success in business?
It depends on what you're trying to accomplish. For example, if I'm a lawyer, my success as a lawyer may not necessarily be in monetary terms.
Okay.
I may be more interested in becoming a senior advocate. Or I may be more interested in, I'm passionate about people going to jail for crimes they didn't commit. So what you are trying to accomplish will determine what measurement tools you need to put in place.
Okay.
So because not everything can be measured in monetary terms. Success is only in it's not only in monetary terms.
Okay.
It could be many other terms.
Like?
I'm just giving you one. If I'm a lawyer, becoming a senior advocate might be my goal. That may not necessarily be monetary. You can be very rich as a lawyer without being senior advocate. And you could go into commercial law, you could go into shipping law. In shipping law, you may get paid in dollars. You may not necessarily become a senior advocate, but you make a lot of money. I have a few friends who are some of the richest lawyers in this country. They are not interested in becoming a senior advocate. Because all they do deal with the agreements. And in those agreements, they are paid. They don't need you to come and pay for them to represent you in court. Because it's in court that senior advocates are really respected. Because they have ranking. So if a senior advocate has a case, and somebody that is not a senior advocate has a case, the senior advocate's case will be listened to first, and so on and so forth.
So how does that example come down to a product?
Now, in a product, for example, what am I trying to solve? What problem am I trying to solve? If I'm a hospital, for example, my priority may not be just making money. My priority might be, I don't like seeing children die before they are 5 years old. So the number of children I can help with their medical problems, it determines my measurement of success. So those are the first things you need to recognize. What are you trying to accomplish? That now determines what or how you measure your success. But if it is just you want to become wealthy, or you want to just, and then you can only measure by monetary value. But not every sphere or not every field can be properly measured with monetary terms or in monetary terms.
Okay. Is there every field that can make someone a billionaire or that can make someone very wealthy?
No.
Why?
Becoming a billionaire, for example, has to do with number of products you're selling and the price you're selling those products. If I'm a brain surgeon, my chances of becoming a billionaire as a brain surgeon is very slim. Yes. How many surgeries of the brain will I have to do before I can make $1 billion? How much am I charging? And how many people can afford? So, for example, if I charge $20,000 per operation, I need to do 50,000 operations.
Wow.
To make $1 billion before my expenses.
Wow.
So how on earth am I going to do 50,000 operations? I'm one person.
Wow.
Not every field can make you a billionaire.
Not every field. Okay, what if someone have that vision or that desire to be a billionaire and it's in a particular field that you think that cannot make the person a billionaire? What should the person do?
If your goal is to be a billionaire in dollars, for example, my first advice is you need to go and study the world's richest people. There are about 2,000 billionaires in the world that is recognized today. And you need to now study and find out what are the fields, where do they operate.
If you study that areas, then you can...
Then you can now, based on where they operate, then you can now say, okay, where can I operate out of all of this? And what will be the scope? Because somebody that is a billionaire in sports, you can't be a sports in Nigeria and say you want to be a billionaire. It cannot happen.
Even if you are playing outside of the country.
It cannot happen. Players don't become billionaires in sports.
And there is no player, even dead or alive, that is a billionaire in sports.
The players that have become billionaires did not become billionaires from the sport. They became billionaires from the brand.
Wow. Okay. Break it down more.
Okay. I'll give you, there are 3 sports people today that are billionaires. Number 1 is Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan is arguably the best basketballer that ever lived. But he made only $90 million in his entire career as a basketballer.
In his entire career, 90 only?
Yes. So how did he become a billionaire?
Shoes.
2 things. It wasn't even the shoes. From his career as a billionaire, as a basketballer, a brand was created. Nike shoes, Air Jordan brand. In such a way that Nike pays him money every year based on how those shoes sell.
Wow.
And right now they pay him close to about $100 million a year.
Wow.
For those shoes. But that's not even what really made him a billionaire. The greatest wealth Michael Jordan has made in his life came when he bought a basketball team.
Wow.
So the money he made from the brand is what he used to buy a basketball team. And the team he bought for just about, was it under $200 million? Today is worth over $2 billion.
Wow.
So you see that even though he's a sports person, he actually made the bulk of his wealth from being a businessman, owning a sports team.
Wow, interesting.
Exactly.
So, apart from, you said there are 3.
Tiger Woods.
Okay. Tiger Woods.
His is likely because it's a brand.
He also own a sport business.
He doesn't really own sports. But he's been paid a lot of money for the last 25 to 30 years.
From his sports?
From adverts, from his brand.
Okay. And the 3rd person?
So another basketballer. He's currently still playing, even though he will soon retire. LeBron James. He too, the same thing. It's largely from a brand, even though LeBron James too has become a heavy investor. He's a shareholder in Liverpool Football Club. He's a shareholder in Liverpool Football Club. He's a shareholder in some other entities like that.
Okay.
So, so if you're a sports person in Nigeria, for example, if you don't have a global brand, you can't become a billionaire. And if you don't also leverage on that brand to have businesses that can create that kind of value, you can get there.
Now, how can someone continually maintain client relationship in order to build successful business?
Every relationship, whether it's clients, marriage, friendship, whatever, has to do with win-win.
Okay.
So, if your client doesn't feel, for you to maintain your clients must feel the product or service you are selling to them meets their needs at a price that they're willing to continue to pay, and they believe they're getting enough value for what they're paying. So that perception is important for a client to keep coming. Of course, the way you also treat the clients, especially when human beings are involved. Human beings by nature want to be treated well. So how you treat that client too becomes very important. A client could leave you and go to somebody that is more expensive than you are because that other person treats him or her better. So as human beings, how you treat your client is important. It's as important as the value you are selling.
Okay, how can an entrepreneur manage risk in business?
First of all, risks in everything. So there's nothing, you cannot do anything in life without a risk. Sitting on this chair, there's a risk. The chair could give up. So everything has risks. So as entrepreneurs, what you need to do is be very well informed so that you can constantly take calculated risks. Risks are very dangerous when you've not calculated and looked at the variables. So if this happens, how bad is the risk? Too high? There are many decisions you've got to take if the risk is too high. I say no, even though this thing looks very good, it's too risky. I'm not going that way. So you must have what you call your risk acceptance criteria. What level of risk can you take? I'll give you an example. Banks cannot take the risk that venture capitalists can take, because banks are using savings deposits of the public. So for a bank, anything that can put those savings deposits at risk, the bank won't touch it. A venture capitalist is given money by people who know that it's going to take risk, and many of them will fail.
Why did you do that?
Because the way banking and venture capitalism have two different criteria. In banking, what you are looking at is what we call downside protection. If this thing fails, I must not lose money. So I need to protect my downside. I need to ensure that if I fall, there is a net that will cover me. Whereas a venture capitalist is looking for what you call upside potential. He's not interested in if he falls. He's only interested in how high can I go? Why? Because a venture capitalist can invest in 20 businesses. And the two that will do well, we pay for all the 18 that failed because they're going very high. So you can invest 1 naira and get 30 naira. So if you invest 1 naira out of 20 naira in two places and get 30 naira, he gets 60 naira from those two that worked. The remaining 18 that he lost, it doesn't bother him. A banker can't think like that, because a banker charges you interest. So there's a limit to how high he can go. So what he's concerned about is that I must have a floor, because if this thing fails, when my customers come for their savings, I must be able to pay them. So their mindset is different. What they are looking for and what they can do as risk is different.
So that means the venture capitalist is basically a risk taker.
They are more attuned to take risk.
What's the process of hiring staff? Like typically, if you want to hire staff, what's the process you go through when you come to hiring staff? And also, what's the process you go through when it comes to firing non-performing staffs or airing staffs or staff that are outrightly bad?
When you're hiring staff, staff are at three broad levels.
Okay.
When you are looking to hire, say, a managing director, the process you take is different from when you want to hire an entry-level staff. If it's an entry-level staff, you could just simply do an advert in Jobberman or any of those social media platforms. If it is even non-skilled staff, you can just tell all your staff, look, if you have any friends, if you have anybody that is looking for a job, this kind of job, bring their CV and let us interview them. So at that level, that process is good enough. You know, you get their CVs, create a small panel, interview them, look for whether they fit into the job, look for whether they fit into the culture of the business, look for whether they fit into the profile you are trying to create, and so on and so forth. When you're looking for an MD, then you are doing what you call job hunting. You might need to hire a professional human resource firm that will now say, okay, I know people who are general manager levels in this company, in that company, in that company. I can go and talk to them.
So you move to you must be working in a different company. Then you go there and talk to them.
Why you want to hire a managing director who is not currently a very senior executive somewhere else? Why are you giving him that kind of responsibility? So if I'm looking for a managing director of a bank, for example, obviously anybody that I'm going to interview must either be a general manager or executive director in an existing bank.
It must not be maybe the person is unemployed. She's not at home.
You want to get at that level. Entry level, any unemployed person is a candidate. Okay. At the middle level is a combination of both.
Okay.
So you're looking for people who you can train. You're also looking for people who have a little bit of experience and knowledge and skills. So the person may or may not be in employment and so on and so forth. Okay. At an MD level, no. If you're that good, why are you unemployed?
Okay, continue.
So that's for hiring. Of course, before you even hire you know what you're looking for, what kind of skills, what kind of qualifications, what kind of job experience. Are you looking for male or female sometimes? What age bracket, and so on and so forth. Where is the person's job going to be located at? Is it a job that a married woman would want to take? Because there are some jobs that require you to travel a lot that maybe a married woman may not want that kind of job, and so on and so on. So you need to do a proper assessment of the job and the kind of person that you need for that job. So that's on that level. In terms of firing, first of all, there are rules and there are laws. Secondly, you must have company policies. What are the offenses somebody can commit that warrants the person to be fired? Because you can't just wake up and say, I don't like you, I fire you. No, the person will take you to industrial court.
In Nigeria?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Maybe because you've not... Oh, yes. It does exist and people have won significant damages. Oh, yes.
Seriously?
Oh, yes. There are laws. So you must have company policy of what offenses will lead to termination, what offenses will lead to a summary dismissal, because there's a difference between summary dismissal and termination.
Explain the difference.
Summary dismissal means as you are dismissed now, you are not entitled to any money. Termination means you will be given notice and you will be paid till the last day of your terminal date. Summary dismissal, you are dismissed today and you are gone and no payment will be made. So the offense that needs to be committed for someone to be summarily dismissed is higher than the offense that someone needs to commit to be terminated. You can be terminated for poor performance. You can't be summarily dismissed for poor performance. Summary dismissal requires either fraud case or you fought physically and injured somebody inside the office. Things like that are behavior that is totally unwarranted.
Sexual harassment and all of that.
Sexual harassment, if it is proven, and then it also depends on what level of harassment. If it is just somebody saying something negative about somebody of the opposite sex, that may not require summary dismissal. That might be termination. But if somebody attempted rape, for example, that's summary dismissal. So the gravity of the offense. And then in terms of termination too, there are rules. So if somebody is not performing well, for example, you have to give the person a warning. You have to give the person time to correct that. And then if the person doesn't correct it after a period of time, then you can terminate. For fraud, it's summary dismissal. For stealing, summary dismissal. For false documentation, summary dismissal, and so on and so forth. So there must be rules, because there are laws that govern employment contracts. Every employment is a contract, by the way. So there are laws that govern those contracts, and you must follow the rules.
Okay, now when it comes to for the employment part of it, do you usually have, is it depending on the business that you specify the kind of people you employ, or depending on the role?
Both. So if you have a bank, for example, the kind of jobs people do in a bank is different from the kind of jobs people do in a hospital. In a hospital, I need nurses, I need doctors. In a bank, I need customer service staff, I need operation staff, I need marketing staff, and so on and so forth. So the business, the nature of the business, and the roles that you are trying to fill determines the kind of people you hire.
Interesting. Okay, now when it comes to someone growing in business, why do you think it got to a point whereby people grow in business and get to a particular level
and they plateau?
Yes, and they couldn't just go past that stage. They just get stuck in that particular level. They keep struggling. They cannot get past that particular stage. Why do you think is the reason why I can someone get past a particular level that is more like he's stuck in it at that level?
Reason number one, for example, is if I'm running a shop in one location and I'm the one that takes all the decisions, I can't run a shop in 5 locations. Because if I'm to run in 5 locations, then some other people have to be taking decisions. So, first reason is, how am I functioning? Am I the everything? So if you are the one that goes to you are the only one that goes to the bank, you're the only one that signs all the checks, you're the only one that determines all the prices, you're the only one that, you can't have multiple locations. So that's issue number one. Issue number two, so that means that for every new level, you must change the way you function. So that's very important. The second one is you have to also look at, if you're plateauing, maybe you are stuck in a particular sector that is not growing. So if I'm doing what sector can I think of now? If I'm running a school and I have only space for 500 students, if I don't expand that school, I can't go beyond 500. I'm already limited by my capacity, by my infrastructure.
Okay.
Some other sector, it could just be that the sector is not growing. And if the sector is not growing, then it means I must either pick up business from some other person that is still within the same sector, either by buying them or by taking their customer, or I need to now go into another sector in order to continue to grow. So the first reason you need to ask is it the way you are functioning that is limiting you from growing? If not, then the next question is it my infrastructure that is limiting me from growing? If not, then the third question is it my industry? For example, if I'm selling bread and I'm only in Lagos, if I want to grow, sometimes I might need to open another bakery in Abuja or in Port Harcourt in order to address another market. So, but if I'm the only one taking all the decisions, if I have to also test the bread before it can be released, I can't test in Port Harcourt. I can't test in Abuja. Which means that if I can't find people that will do the job I'm doing in Lagos, in Abuja and Port Harcourt, I can't grow. I have plateaued.
So it has to be based on the industry and the...
First is your person. Second is your location or your infrastructure. Third is your industry.
Wow. Okay, then if it's in some industry, you said it's good for the person to switch into a different...
You could either think of taking customers from your competitors, or buying some of your competitors, or considering expanding to other industries and
now,
sectors.
What if it is because of maybe the person needed more funds to move out of that particular stage, but the person is growing? It's not really because of infrastructure or things like that, but just more funds the person needs to put in to grow past a particular level. What would the person do?
Part of what you need to do as a business person, and that's why I keep going back to vision. When you have a vision, at different stages, there are some strategic steps that you need to take to move to the next level. So when there's a vision, you must have a plan. When I get to this point and I need money, what am I going to do? You don't wait till you get to that point before you now start trying to answer that question. You answer that question before you get to that point. So you will have prepared for that next phase. That is also part of why when people don't have a vision, their capacity to grow is very limited, because they will always have situations where they didn't plan for, that they now get to, and then they now stuck until they can now figure out how to now move to the next level. They're wasting time. But because they didn't consider it before, so sometimes the way you are structured to get to this level might hinder you from getting to this level. So you have to, as you are moving, you must constantly be thinking about how are you structured in order to move to the next level. Because some things that you currently do might hinder you from moving to that next level.
Okay. Now you're talking about the person did not think of it. Okay, now let's look at it as though the person is already at that stage now. Maybe the person didn't factor it in his planning. The person is at the stage now. What should the person do right now to move past that particular stage that you know that it's just finance that he needs to boost himself out of that stuck stage?
Remember I said at the beginning that raising capital is a skill every entrepreneur has to develop.
Okay.
And the reason why I said so is that if you don't develop those skills, there are things, when you want to raise capital, there are things that either banks or investors are looking for. So if you've not developed the skill and prepare yourself to be able to present those things they are looking for, your capacity, the possibility or your potential to raise money will be significantly limited. So for example, rule number one in making money is, if you can't show that you are making profits, how would anybody want to give you more money? Either as a banker or as an investor. But when you are showing that you are making profits, you have to also deal with the government, because the government will come for their taxes. So many entrepreneurs have run into the trouble of trying to dodge government tax by underreporting their profits. But when they now need money to move to the next level, they have already shot themselves in the foot.
Okay. I do that. I don't know that. So that can work for
it definitely will work against you, because when you now go to the bank and they say, where are your records? Where are the records you filed? You didn't make profit last year. No.
That's a problem on its own.
I think it's a problem on its own.
Wow. So you have to just be declaring the actual results.
You see, at the end of the day, that's why I keep on going back to the fact that it's vision. First of all, from a long-term perspective, it's safer for you to find how to declare the actual results because we're still developing. At some point, our tax collecting systems will become more sophisticated. And one of the problems of taxes is that they can do an audit of 10 years and bring a bill that you have to pay. So you don't want to have dodged for 10 years before somebody comes up and says, "Oga, this is their bill." So that's very important. But secondly, all those things affect your capacity to raise money in future, either from banks or from other investors, because your figures don't show the quality of the profits that you are making, and that will always be negative.
Wow. Now, what do you think are the 5 reasons why people stop dreaming?
I think the first one is failure. Children, all children have dreams. Why? They've not experienced failure. But for many of us, as we experience failures, many of us now build a safety net around ourselves by saying, in order not to fail next time, maybe I shouldn't even attempt it. Unfortunately, that creates a bigger problem, which is the problem of lack of fulfillment. So failure.
Okay, that's number 1.
I also say fear.
Fear. Okay.
It's not exactly the same as failure, but it's similar. Some people, after they failed a few times, they are afraid of failing again. They are afraid of the embarrassment. So that is also another problem. The third one sometimes is success.
Success?
Success sometimes makes you stop dreaming.
Seriously?
You feel you have arrived. I've been dreaming of owning a house in Ikoyi, of having a brand new Mercedes. Now I have a house in Ikoyi and I have a brand new Mercedes. What am I looking for again? Don't you see sometimes they say somebody retired at 35, set up an IT company, sold it for $100 million and retired at 35.
Wow.
Success.
Okay. That's number 3.
Lack of vision.
Lack of vision. Number 4. Okay.
That hunger to make a mark in life. Some people are only interested in, just leave me alone. My wife, myself, my children. I'm not interested in all this wahala. Because to make a dream happen, it takes a lot of effort. It takes sacrifice. So for many people, the effort is too much. All right, so point number 5, why people stop dreaming, is retirement. The way retirement works is that when you get to that point when you retire, if you are not ready to become an entrepreneur, you're stuck. You just sit down at home. At that point, you are unemployable by most institutions. So many people just feel that it's just time for them to wait for them to die. But what I've discovered is that some of the biggest successes in life came from people after the age of 60. Warren Buffett, who I've studied for a long time, made over 98% of his current wealth today after the age of 50. Yes.
Wow.
He became a billionaire after the age of 50. It's currently worth over $100 billion. The man that started KFC started it at the age of 65. So Mandela came out of prison at over 70. Retirement is a fallacy. I recommend to most people, don't let that become a hindrance to your life.
Interesting. Okay, now you've been talking about dreaming big. How can people start dreaming big?
Very good question. The first thing, if you really want to start dreaming big, is you have to work on what I call your potential.
Potential.
Potential is simply, let me use a newborn baby as an example. A newborn baby girl that was born 5 minutes ago has the potential to be a great grandmother with 100 grandchildren and great grandchildren before she leaves this life.
That's the potential.
That's the potential. That's still a baby. Doesn't even know her right from her left. But that baby has that potential. So the first question, if you want to dream big in life, is to ask yourself, what is your potential? How far can you go in this life? How high can you rise on this life? What's the limit? What are the things that limit you apart from yourself? So until you can assess your potential correctly, you will never dream big.
Wow.
You need to be able to assess your potential correctly. Then you begin to dream big.
Now, what is the strategy for scaling a business globally?
First point is, whatever problems you are solving in your locality must be applicable in other localities.
Okay.
For example, if I'm solving food problem and my specialty is to use amala, my chances of succeeding in China selling amala is not very high because they don't know amala as a product.
That's true.
So, the first question you need to ask yourself is that the problem you are solving, is it localized or it's a problem that permeates national boundaries? Banking, for example, permeates national boundaries because the service you're providing has no taste. Everywhere in the world, people need banking services. So that's the first question you need to ask yourself. Once you've answered that question, then the second question is, where are gaps in this world or in other boundaries or in other nations or in other environments that I can feel? Because it will be difficult for even, say, Access Bank to go to America today and say they want to compete with JP Morgan Chase. They can't do that. The capacities are different. So that's the next level of question I need to ask, that, okay, even if I want to go to those boundaries, what space, what gap am I going to fill? And then before you now go to the next question of, how do I now go about this? Because there are different laws, all kinds of things, different currencies, different languages. So, but the first question is the problem I'm solving localized or global?
So if it's localized, then you cannot scale it globally.
You can't scale it globally. So if I'm selling amala, until I can create a market for amala in China, I can't go to China.
But it's possible to sell amala to China.
If they don't eat amala, how do I sell amala?
Can't you make it in a way that they will eat it?
That's the hand. So I have to first create the market. So if I want to go to China, then I must be able to find a way of first creating the market. Now, creating a market is not easy. Because the first question is, why should they listen to you? Who are you? You say I should try Amala. Why? You're not a global brand. If you are Coca-Cola that everybody everywhere in the world recognizes, then you can go anywhere. But Amala, what is Amala? Are you sure it's healthy? What is the chemical composition of Amala?
So I will not chop and punch.
Exactly. So you have to first create that market before you can go in.
What do you think? Now, when you talk about potential, talked about dreaming big, and you talk about potential and growth. So, what do you think are the 5 enemies of growth and achieving potential?
The 5 enemies of potential. There are many. There are many enemies of potential. I'll give you some interesting ones. Comparison.
Comparison. Okay.
I'm not you. You are not me. If I continue to compare myself with you, I will never achieve my potential. Because we're not the same. A Rolls Royce and a Ferrari are not the same. A Rolls Royce is built for comfort. A Ferrari is built for speed. They're not the same. So, one mistake many people make that hinders their potential that they don't know is you keep comparing yourself with somebody else. That's a big mistake.
Wow.
Comparison.
That's number 1.
Number 1. Number 2. Low self-worth.
Low self-worth. Okay.
Most of us, especially in this part of the world, have, by the color of our skin, determined there's a limit to how far we can go in life. Let me give you an example. When many of us jackpot, for example,
There is a run away from the country.
yes, we go and do jobs in UK that if they give you in Nigeria, you say, what kind of nonsense is this? Why? Because our self-worth is that if I'm there and I'm sweeping the streets in London, it's still better than working here in Nigeria in a bank. Because of the way we see ourselves. Low self-worth.
Wow.
Our mindset hinders our potential.
And number 2.
Low self-worth. Number 3. Mindset.
Mindset.
Are you a problem solver in your mind? Do you see obstacles as obstacles, or you see obstacles as stepping stones? Mindset. Do you see Goliath as a blockage, or Goliath as the door to your throne? Mindset. Because if you are going to maximize your potential, every obstacle is a stepping stone. The option of turning back does not exist. It's a mindset. It's a mindset.
Okay. That's 3.
Number 4. Many of us make one very big mistake, which is that you blame others for your failure.
So blaming others for our failures.
What we don't realize when you blame others for your failure is that you have transferred the authority to determine your future to somebody else. Rather than blaming others for our failures, what we need to do is to ask ourselves, what did I do wrong? How did I get to this point? You don't understand. My staff stole 30 million naira from me. And that was all the capital I was using. No, the question is not your staff. The question is you. Number one, how did you hire a criminal? Number two, what system are you running that somebody will steal so much from you before you realize he has stolen? See, two different ways of looking at the same situation. If you are going to fulfill your potential, you must always look at yourself. Blaming somebody else is an enemy to your potential.
Wow. Number 5.
Number 5. There are many. You know all the points I mentioned about dreaming? They are also applicable to potential. Success, failure, fear. They are all applicable. But let me say this one. If you really want to fulfill potential, you have to have audacity. How can a black man become the president of the United States of America? You must have an audacity that all the limitations that human beings have placed are irrelevant to me. Because even after he has left office for how many years now? Almost 8 years. The black race in America, the situation has not changed though. They are still killing blacks on the streets. They are still arresting blacks. Nothing has changed. But somebody said, the color of my skin is not going to limit me. You must have that audacity.
Interesting. Wow. Now, you in your first point, or one of your points, you talked about low self-worth, and you talked about the fact that people, just by about color, by where you come from, you begin to think low of yourself. Now, do you think when it comes to building a business, do you think the Nigerian economy or policies or things, the Nigeria environment itself, can hamper growth of fulfilling big dreams and potential? Or do you think there is a way someone can go around it? Because in developed countries, in the West and all of that, there is no limit to whatever achievement you want to achieve based on their policies and the environment. Do you think it's applicable to Nigeria, or the Nigerian environment can hamper growth and long success achievements?
One of the things about potential is you must stop blaming any other person. There's a book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, that I recently gave my staff to all read. Why? Because how you look at situations determines your response. You can look at Nigeria in two different ways. You can look at everything in Nigeria and say they are not working and give up. Or you can look at everything in Nigeria that is not working as an opportunity and salivate. The same problems that you're looking at, the same situations that you're looking at, but with a different perspective. So when I look at Nigeria, people see problems, I see opportunities. All those obstacles are opportunities. Even the government regulation that is many times unfavorable is opportunity. How is it opportunity? Very simple. Because it is unfavorable, there are many people that won't go into it. It's too risky. It's too difficult. There's too much uncertainty. So for some of us, wonderful, less competition. It's all about mindset. It's all about mindset. But at the end of the day, when I look at Nigeria, our greatest advantage and strength is also our greatest problem. 200 million. When you read the history of economics, of economies, until the Industrial Revolution, every nation was as wealthy as the population. Because the productivity of every nation was a function of how many human beings. Everybody was working with their hands. It was the advent of the Industrial Revolution, whereby the West that had access to machines increased the productivity of their people by getting people to use machines. The farmland that you can use your hand to harvest is different from the farmland that a tractor can be used to harvest. So that increased significantly the productivity of the Western world. But the advent of the internet age and the global village is now also now making that advantage to now continue to disappear. Because now you can make cars in China and sell in America. You can make computers in Taiwan and sell in Germany. So why do you want to pay somebody in Germany $20 an hour when somebody in Indonesia will do that same job for $2 an hour? So the world is now at that age where that gap is now gradually being eroded. That is why if you notice now in many parts of Europe, everybody is going on strike because they are asking for more pay. But the economists can no longer pay them more because right now, many of those things that they are doing, somebody else can do it for less price. So if we come back to Nigeria, this same population that is our biggest problem can be turned into an advantage. Because this population is a market. This population is potential. At the end of the day, it all boils down to mindset, perspective. What do you see? Is it half empty or half full?
Do you see Nigeria as a free market economy?
First of all, there's no totally free market. First of all, anywhere in the world. There's no totally free market. With that as a background, Nigeria is a relatively free market economy. But there's no totally free market. You can't just export akara to America. No. You can't even just carry mango and say you want to enter America with your mango. No. It's not free. There are rules. There are limitations. There are restrictions. So there's no totally free market. Every country has its problems. For example, people don't know that in Europe, the amount of tax you pay is a big problem. Big problem. I've refused the opportunity of getting an American citizenship because of tax. Tax. As an American citizen, any money you make anywhere in the world is taxable by America. Oh, you need to know. So there are many laws and rules. People, you need to be educated about many of these things. What is Nigeria's biggest problem? It's corruption. It's corruption. If you remove corruption, we have a very friendly environment. Our taxes are low. The highest personal income tax you pay in Nigeria is 25%. In fact, by the time you factor in the allowances, the highest personal income tax you pay in Nigeria is 20%. In France, when your income gets to a particular point, you're paying 90% tax. France.
Wow.
Yes, we don't need to know.
It's a socialist economy.
Now, Europe is more what you would call socialist capitalists. They are more welfare, let's put it that way. So they are more of a welfare state in Europe. So in Europe, for example, until recently, for example, in France, during winter, if somebody squats in your house, you can't drive them. You cannot, even if it's illegal. Yes.
Because someone can come into your house and you cannot pursue the person.
You cannot drive somebody who is an illegal squatter in your house during winter. If the person is illegal, you cannot. In fact, America too has a very interesting law too. I think if somebody stays in your house for about a month or so, you can't just wake up and drive the person. Yes, the person has become a recognized tenant. Even if the person is not paying anything.
Seriously.
So there are different laws in different countries that have different implications. Because many of us have not been very exposed to other countries, we just assume that Nigeria is just a bad place and everybody else is good. That's not correct. There are all kinds of funny laws in all over the world. Some are very strange, like the one of an illegal squatter in my house, I can't drive. But it's the truth. That's the law.
If you want to drive the person, what would you now do?
Now, in France in those days, that law was applicable during winter. So during winter, you can't. After winter, they might permit you. But during winter, because the reason why they are more socialist minded, the reason why is that look, the person that is poor and doesn't have any place to stay, if he stays on the street, he can die during winter. So because of that, you can't do that.
Okay.
Now America is more capitalist. America, they don't care. You know, winter or summer, whatever, if you die on the streets, you're on your own.
Your business.
You're on your own. For example, I'll give you another interesting law in France. I had a friend many years ago, this was in the 1990s, that was working for a particular company. I won't mention the name, it's a multinational. And he wanted to leave the company. So what did he do? He stopped going to the office. I said, why don't you just send in a letter of resignation? He said, no. That how did he put it though? He said something like if he absconds from duty, he will get more. Because they would have to terminate him and pay him more. That's funny laws. I mean, you can't just fire, in Europe, for example, you can't just fire somebody. You can't just sack somebody. No. In fact, I remember there was a time in Spain, some banks had a problem and they wanted to reduce staff. And by law, they couldn't. So they had to go and they had to beg some of their staff and say, okay, stay at home for the next 3 years. We'll be paying you half salary. So that at least they can save that half. But they can't terminate. So every country has their laws. We just assume everything about Nigeria is bad because we've not learned and be exposed to that. The fact that some other countries too, they have their own peculiar laws.
And people just see it like Nigeria, the issues there are too much. That's why they're really saying that if you open the borders now, you see how people will run away.
Because they don't know what is happening out there. If they knew what was happening out there, they probably wouldn't be in a hurry.
If someone is thinking of running out of the country now, say, okay, they want to go and get greener pastures there. Is that the best option? Because of the standard of their economy.
I don't want to say something controversial, but I'll say that for young people, my advice will be careful before you leap. Let me explain further. When you don't really know your potential, that's when you leap. Because those environments limit your potential. Oh, yes. Have you ever heard of anybody Or rather, out of 100 people you know that live in the UK, how many of them are entrepreneurs? All of them go to look for work. That's the first limitation.
I mean, it's hard to become an entrepreneur there.
You cannot.
You cannot, or it's difficult.
It's difficult. What are you going to do? How are you going to start? Which market are you going to open? So that's limit number one. No limit number two. You start working in a place today, they're paying you £2,000 a month. 25 years from now, they're paying you £3,000 a month. So in 25 years, the growth in your salary is just £1,000.
Wow.
So look very carefully before you leap. No problem number three. They're paying you £2,000 a month. You convert it to naira, 1.6 million naira. That looks very good. Then you now go and look for a house to rent. And you see a space that is not as big as this. Just this room. Maybe half of this room. And they tell you it's £700 a month.
A month?
Yes.
A month?
A month.
Wow.
That's not inside central London, though. When you're inside central London, Manhattan in New York, a space like this is almost $4,000 a month.
1 month.
1 month. So that's why I say, look very carefully before you leap. So 3 things I've mentioned now. 1, potential. You can't be an entrepreneur. 2, your salary is not going to increase any marginally for the next 30 years. 3, your costs very high. And in fact, number 4, you know, here you can hire a driver, you can hire house help for almost nothing. My wife's cousin just left us. She went back to London yesterday. When she had her second daughter, stopped work for 6 months. When I asked her, she was like, look, the cost of hiring a nanny to take care of my daughter was almost the same as my salary. So what was the point?
So that means they have standard price you must pay a nanny.
Oh, absolutely.
You can't just bring in someone like, here we can do it here. You can just bring in someone and pay the person anything.
In fact, some people have gone to jail for taking somebody from Nigeria. You know, like you Igbos.
Yes.
When you carry, they give you your nephew or your niece. You now say, I'm going to London. Okay, come along with me. And then that person now gets to London. And now is exposed. Person now walks into the police station. That my auntie brought me to London. And all they are giving is sending £100 to my parents every month. That they have been put, it is slavery. That person is going to jail. Yes.
Wow.
It's going straight to jail. So you can't, so even this your £2,000-3,000, as you begin to have children, you suddenly discover it's not enough. It's not enough.
So now what are the common mistakes you think people make when trying to build a business? Or when trying to start up a business?
I've mentioned some of them. I think now, if I were to say it again, lack of planning. Similar to lack of planning. Inadequate planning.
Inadequate planning.
So I'll explain. Lack of planning is, where am I going? How will I get there? What are the steps I need to take to build my business to get to that point? That is lack of planning. Inadequate planning now is plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, plan E. If this doesn't work, what do I do? If this doesn't work, what do I do? So, a plan needs to have what you call scenario simulation. Scenario A: I'm starting this business and I expect by the end of the first month, I will have 5 customers. That's what my plan says. By the end of the second month, I will have 10 customers. By the end of the third month, I will have 15 customers. By month 6, I will have 30 customers. By that 30 customers, I'm making enough money to pay my salaries. So, by my plan, I need to have enough cash now to cover salary costs from now till month 6. Because it's only from month 6 that my income can cover my salary cost. That's my plan. Scenario planning now is, supposing in month 1, I only have 1 customer instead of 5. So supposing it takes me 18 months to get to 30 customers. Do I have enough cash to keep paying salaries for the next 18 months? Because my plan was 6 months. So scenario planning means, if my plan doesn't work, how can I keep the business running until we get to that point? That's inadequate planning. There was a plan, but it wasn't adequate, because that plan did not give room for circumstances that were contrary to the assumptions of the plan.
Wow.
That's the second issue. Third issue I've said before, your running costs. Businesses fail when cash dries up. Costs always consume cash. Your running costs. The lower they are, the greater your capacity to be self-sustaining for a longer period of time. There are many things you did not plan for that sometimes happen when you are running or you are starting a business. So that's the third one I'll mention.
Then how can someone secure investment and funding for his business? You said it's a skill. How can someone build that skill of securing investment?
Or securing, raising capital.
Yeah, build securing an investment for your business. Yes.
Is it raising capital or
investment?
What do you mean by investment?
That means to get money for someone to invest into your business.
So that's still raising capital. Okay, it's a skill. Number one is you need to be able to know what people are looking for. Like I said, profit. You also need to be able to sell your idea. In other words, this thing you are doing that is profitable, why should I be part of it? What is the need for me? That's very important. 3, integrity. Integrity. You know, I said I sold cars in order to pay for some of my early failed investments. That's a very powerful story for some people, because that shows integrity. When people invest in you, they want to be sure that if anything happens, you have their back. So that's very, very important. Number 4, you must demonstrate a level of competence and track record, that you know what you're talking about and you can deliver. You must be able to talk about what you do and explain what you do to a prospective investor without looking at notes. For example, there's a company we just bought recently, and part of the quarrel I have with, even though this is first experience as being MD, is that he doesn't know his business. I must know my business to the point where I know how many customers I need to make 5 million naira profit. How many customers do I need to make 10 million naira profit? I must know the variables that drives that business. What decisions will I make? For example, I have a particular business now that if we invest 50 million into the business, our income increases by 40 million. Which means that if I have 50 million in that business and I go and use it to buy 5 cars, my cost of buying those 5 cars is the 40 million income that I have lost, plus the 10 million naira every year that the value of those cars reduce, plus the cost of maintaining and insuring and all the other things that are associated with those cars. Which means that off my head, investing 50 million in cars in that business is the equivalent of losing like 50 to 60 million every year.
Wow.
I need to understand that.
Now, how do you manage the financial aspects of building a business while you also ensure quality customer satisfaction?
You need to understand what is called your cost of production. What does it cost you to service a customer? And how much is the customer paying you for that service? So, for example, building a Rolls-Royce car with all the quality that is attached to Rolls-Royce for somebody who can only afford a Hyundai is wasted effort. So quality is not the only thing you need. You also have to define what your customer needs and can afford. If I open a restaurant in Ajegunle and I'm putting the most expensive fish on the menu, I'm not being wise. Because at that location, the quality of that fish is completely irrelevant to the people. What they are looking for is just to eat and fill their belly. So we must be mindful about quality, because quality must always be within the context of what the customer actually wants.
Now, going from point A to point B when it comes to building a business on a global scale, what do you consider when expanding a business globally?
What do I consider?
That means if you want to move away from your business from Nigeria to South Africa, what do you consider? What do you put in place to make that kind of expansion?
Okay, the first thing is, why am I moving to another geography? So that's the first question I need to ask myself. Because there could be many reasons. Number one, it could be that I want to diversify in terms of my risk. So because any business in Nigeria has Nigeria risk. My currency is Naira. My ability to borrow is subject to Nigeria's rating. For example, recently Nigeria was downgraded, which means that anybody that is operating in Nigeria is affected. So I might want to move to South Africa or open a branch in South Africa because I want to diversify my risk. Another reason why is that I might want to go to South Africa because I have some customers in Nigeria that are already in South Africa. So I have a ready market in South Africa waiting for me. So that's another reason why I might want to go to South Africa. A third reason is I might look at Nigeria and say, my industry in Nigeria is not growing as fast as I want it to. So I want to open new markets in South Africa to be able to continue to grow. That's a third reason. So the first question will therefore be, what is my reason for going to South Africa? Because that reason will now determine all the other things I need to now consider.
Now, what does it mean for life to bully someone into submission?
Life is a school. Life is also a war zone. Life throws many things at us. Like I said earlier on, every young child has big dreams because they've not experienced the challenge and the blows and the failures and the heartaches and the disappointments that happens along the journey of life. As we go along this journey, we develop two different kinds of mindsets. Some of us, we build strength and resilience, that whatever comes my way, I defeated Goliath yesterday, I will defeat Goliath today. Some of us, unfortunately, are embittered by the failures and disappointments of life. Oh, last week I was betrayed by my friend. 2 years ago, my staff stole all my money. 5 years ago, my brother did this to me. And then you just keep shrinking and shrinking and shrinking until you get to a point where your aspirations are so low that you are not even expecting anything out of life anymore. Your entire mindset has been beclouded by the disappointments and the failures. So, and unfortunately, when you begin to move in that direction, that's where depressive thoughts begin to come in. Suicidal thoughts, negativity comes in. But if you are on the other side of being resilient, you are constantly positive. I survived. If I could survive yesterday, there's nothing that will happen today I won't survive. I'm a survivor. I can do it. So it's all about how we respond. And it still goes back to what I said earlier, that never blame other people for your failures. Always look at yourself. If you didn't do it well, change yourself. Increase your capacity. Don't rely on the next person. You are responsible for your life.
How can an entrepreneur stay motivated during challenges
Vision.
that businesses throw at you?
Vision. Vision. My best teacher of vision is a river.
A river. Okay.
Every river in the world, no matter how small, every stream, the water in there, no matter how small, has only one goal: get to the ocean. If that stream has to merge with another stream, and merge with another river, and merge with another river, the only thing they're doing is getting to the ocean. So sometimes they get to a hill, they make a right turn. They get to another one, they make a left turn. But in all the right, left, whatever turns. Sometimes they even go back. But all they're doing, get to the ocean. If you want to stay motivated, vision. Keep looking at it. Keep looking at your vision. And keep pursuing your vision. And make your vision to be something that is worth your while. Part of the problems with a small vision is that it's not worth putting your entire life into it. So at any obstacle, it's easy to turn back. But when the vision is big enough, it is worth your pursuing. That's one of the big things about vision. So vision is critical to stay motivated.
What do you think are the 3 things that you can say if anybody keeps doing no matter what, you can't fail in business? If you continually do them.
Number 1, keep learning.
Keep learning. Okay.
Keep learning the things that makes businesses similar to yours to succeed. So keep learning. 2, get a role model in that business. One of the beauties of Africa that very few of us have learned to tap is the fact that in Africa, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Whatever you are doing, the likelihood that somebody else somewhere has done it before is very high. Go and find out what they did and do the same thing. There's a business that we're doing that anywhere in the world, people that succeed in that business become billionaires. When you have role models like that and you really study what they did, your chances of succeeding significantly increases. So keep learning. Get a role model, someone that has done that thing before. And for us in Nigeria, we have at least 3 categories of role models you can find. You can look for people in South Africa who may have done what you have done, because South African economy is closer to Nigerian economy than Europe or America. So that could be your role model number 1. You can look at the global stage and look for the biggest and the best. That could be your role model number 3. And then look for someone in between the 2. So if I look at insurance today, for example, I can look at Warren Buffett as a global role model. But there are insurance companies in South Africa that are monsters that I can learn from. That is even closer to what I'm doing in Nigeria. Then I can even look at insurance companies in Nigeria that are far bigger than what we're currently doing. So I already have 3 role models. What did they do? How did they do it? And then a combination of these 2 things should now lead to the 3rd one. Keep changing yourself. Don't be fixated. Keep changing yourself. Learn to adapt and adopt. Adapt and adopt. Adapt, because what worked in China may not work here. So I need to change a few things to make it work in Nigeria. But I need to first learn what worked in China before I can apply it to Nigeria. When you do those things, the chances of failing is slim.
You can't fail.
It's slim. I say your chances of failing is slim.
Very slim.
Because if you are constantly reading and constantly learning, So every time you fail, you make mistakes, you check, updates. So you don't just rise again, but you rise again better informed than you were the last time you failed. So that's number one. Those role models will help you. And then learning how to adapt and adopt is very important.
Wow. Wow. So now, to finalize it, I can look at the camera and just give any advice you can give to someone that's just about to start up a business. What is the advice you have for that person?
I think the advice I have is, number one, have a vision. Dream. Release your potential. Don't limit yourself. Number two, be accountable to yourself. Every mistake, find out what you did wrong. The customer that disappointed you, perhaps you chose the wrong customer. The staff that disappointed you, perhaps your system is wrong. Constantly learn from mistakes and keep changing and keep growing. Find role models, local role models. Read biographies. I've learned so much reading autobiographies. One of the ones that inspired me, I'll give you about 2 or 3 of them. One is a group of Brazilians that started in Brazil, a third world nation like Nigeria. Today, they are the biggest in the world. Another is a man that was fired from his job at the age of 51. At the age of 65, he was the chief executive of the largest bank in the world. Find role models. Read autobiographies. Be resilient. Don't give up. Keep improving. And the sky is your limit.
Wow, thank you very much, sir. But the first is, lastly, people want to locate you. What is the best way they can reach out to you people if someone needs to reach out to you?
One of the things I learned from studying Warren Buffett is that until you learn to say no, you're not likely to succeed. Can you imagine how many invitations someone like that will have every year? As a human being, you are finite. You have X number of hours in every day. For example, I've always dreamt, and I will always be looking for an opportunity to be able to have a 2-hour discussion with Warren Buffett. But I know that if I write to him, he's not going to respond. And the alternative I have, there's a way in which I could actually arrange a meeting with him. But it will cost me a few $1 million. Because he has something he does every year, which is he auctions the opportunity for anybody anywhere in the world to have lunch with him once a year. That auction starts at $100,000. I'm not sure how much it was last year, but there was a particular year it cost over $4 million. I can't afford $4 million today for lunch with Warren Buffett. But the day I can afford it, if he's still alive, I will pay for that lunch. Why am I saying all of this? Time is finite. When I was younger, I didn't realize how expensive and how valuable time is. As I've grown older, I've discovered, we didn't touch on this one, the greatest asset any human being has in this life is time. Not your color, not your citizenship, not even where your parents or the richness of your parents. The greatest asset any human being has on this planet is time. The day you learn that, you will value your time more than anything else. Time is what all of us trade to get to anywhere we are going in life. Either by reading or for some of us by sleeping. You want to be poor? Just stay home and keep sleeping. You don't need any witch, you don't need any obstacle. You will be poor.
No village.
You don't need anything. You will just be poor. Just stay home and sleep all day. Time. So with that as a background, there are too many demands for my time. Even in my office, many of my staff are upset with me because many things they report to me, I ignore them. Not because what they reported is not correct, but because I have too little time that if I were to invest time in fixing what they are talked about, I'll kill myself. So I only invest my time on the most important issues. This merchant is not rude, he's rude to me, this person is unfriendly. I ignore it. Because I've recognized I'm only human. I only have a finite amount of time. I only have a limited amount of energy. So I must be strategic in how I use that time and energy. Remember, I'm also a pastor, so I also have a huge amount of my time that is also consumed by that aspect of my life. So right now, in fact, the biggest challenge I have at this season of my life is how best to manage my time.
So in essence, no rich. Well, someone want to say, I would like this man to do consulting for me to consult my business. Maybe you just need a fee.
For example, I will never consult right now.
Wow.
It's not a good use of my time. I won't do it.
Okay, that wraps it up. Thank you very much, sir,
Thank
for
you.
this opportunity. I sincerely appreciate it. So, guys, I believe you have learned greatly in this video. This is going to be a personal MBA for anybody that wants to start up and grow a business to a global scale. So I believe and you sincerely picked up one or two things in this video. So thank you very much for watching. If you got value from it, hit the like button, share this video with one or two persons. And if it's the first time of coming to the channel, hit the subscribe button and turn on the post notification. My name is Benzik. I do my best to bring you guys interviews like this, and I talk on business, self-development, entrepreneurship, and even issues of life, and do a whole lot of things that will build you up and help you to succeed in business and in life in general. So thank you for watching once again. Do well to turn on post notification and share this video with one or two persons. And thank my guest, Mr. Bunmi Elesho. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'll see you again, guys. Take care. Cheers.